Hi, Dr. Roseanne. So lovely to have you here. Welcome to Black Women's Health Futures podcast.
Well, hi, Chimaka, and thank you for inviting me to be here with you today. It's an honor and a privilege.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to get down into the nitty gritty. But before we do that, please introduce yourself and share a little bit about, your background and the work that you do.
Okay, well, as you said, I'm Dr. Roxanne St. Clair, and I'm a mother of two young men. First generation British born, and my background started in accountancy a number of years ago. And through that, I've gone on to work with senior leaders and business owners in the leadership space. And this was all incidental, really, because it just so happened that I would be having those kinds of conversations with people that would help them find solutions and understand personal feelings and interactions and different things. And I actually migrated, I would say, into the area of leadership and coaching. So that's something I've been doing for, again, many a year. I don't want to give my age away here, so I'm just, but there's a bit of experience there. And also, in parallel to doing that, I've always been, even when I was a young teen, interested in women and women owning and understanding their own power. So I've done work with regards to creating a toolkit for people to understand what makes them tick, how to develop their own personal power, and then being involved in different charities that help women with empowerment and access and education and things like that. So it's very much about developing people and bringing out the potential in an individual. That's where my work is, and that's the thing that actually makes
Yeah,
me excited.
that's awesome. I mean, I know that you have a quite a rich set of experience and you kind of seem to have your hands on a lot of exciting pie. So can't wait to hear more about it. What inspired your passion for mentoring and supporting women across different industries and stages of life?
That's a good question. Something that's actually quite innate. It was just something that was in me.
Yeah.
And I can remember as a teenager just having this thought about women and girls and why we don't realize how powerful we are. And it's something that's up into my mind, and it's something that's stuck with me. And when you consider we are the one at the moment that give birth. In most cases, we're the ones that nurture and hold the family together. And that is such a powerful space to hold. Sometimes we don't recognize it ourselves. And then as we can see playing out in society at the moment, it's not always given the respect and honor that's due as well. As I said, it's something that's always been within me. And I also come from a strong line of women
Yeah.
in terms of very resourceful, very sort of driven and focused, and having that can-do attitude. I've grown up, as people that are looking to achieve what they want to do.
That's right.
And therefore, that was the example that I had. So I didn't really have much choice really, but to, you know,
Yeah.
how women can achieve things. So yeah.
Following those tabs. I mean, I think what really excites me about women supporting women is that it is critical because I think a woman doesn't usually start off feeling like they can't be or do all that they want to do. I think somewhere along their lifetime, whether it's through culture or religion or relationships, their wings are kind of cut, and from a personal experience and from speaking to a lot of people, I find that women have been placed in positions where they have to question their ambition sometimes. And so it's so critical to have female examples that are, reaching for it and, breaking the glass ceiling, because then it validates that feeling that they have within them to say to them, actually wanting to, being ambitious and wanting to be all of that and wanting to have all those things. It's okay because you're usually made to feel like as a woman, it's either this or that. You can have a successful career and a family at the same time. You're being greedy, pick one. And so when it's embedded into one's consciousness, you find that you could limit yourself without even knowing that that's what you're doing. So That's really amazing. And so it really excites me when I see women supporting women, and that's exactly what you do. So
You
from your, yeah,
you just said something there because I think fundamental to that in terms of a woman being able to say, have a home and or have a career or a business or whatever, you need a support network around you. And sometimes that support network, in particular if they don't understand what drives you and what you want to do, isn't always there. And that's the other thing because then mummy guilt comes in if you feel that you're not devoting enough time to your family. And then it's like, I can't do this or something's got to give. Whereas what if that support network was tight enough and you were able to carry on with the business, have your family, have those interactions with your family and feel that you're actually a worthwhile mother and caregiver, as well as a successful career woman or a successful business owner. And
mm.
I think this is, and in particular in today's society, I feel that we have less of that. So that is also, I think, fundamental for us to remember as women is that we do need a support network. We can't do it all on our own, and we should have to.
No, absolutely. And I think where the challenge comes into play is that, migration is real. A lot of women don't live in a place anymore where they had that strong support network to start off with. And so they could feel isolated if, for instance, they got married and they moved away, or they moved away and got married shortly, then their main support network is that relationship and maybe co-workers that, but again, if you're in a foreign environment, you might not develop very strong relationships with your coworkers. And so to an extent, women could be isolated and without that strong network and without having the opportunity to build one, especially depending on the sort of relationship that you get into. And I think that's kind of where the danger zones really are because you know, before then the woman realizes and starts to build that network, there might have been things might have been impacted on her that she now needs to unlearn or try to get over. So yeah, that's kind of what because, when I kind of look at some of the lives, that I've kind of researched or friends that I'm looking at, I feel that those definitely with strong support networks. So maybe they have sisters and they have a mother and they have aunties and they're around them and even through life, career, etc., or girlfriends, those relationships are still there. And she's able to sort of lean back or take from and give. They definitely have a stronger footing than people that don't have that. So but it's all interesting from your experience. Now that we're talking about, you know, the pressures that one could experience, whether in relationships or at work. What do you think are currently the biggest ones, the biggest pressures that women are facing? Yeah, at home or in the workplace.
It does relate back to what we were just discussing in terms of trying to be all things everywhere and doing well at the things that you do without getting burnt out. Because it may be that not only do you have a family to take care of, as in your husband or partner and children, but you may also be caring for elderly parents. You may also have the job. You may have community commitments. You may even have your own health issues to deal with. So
Right.
there's so many different things that women are dealing with nowadays that I feel our lifestyle actually imposes on us as well, in comparison to, say, women years ago. And it's trying to find some kind of balance or get into your own rhythm to make your life work for you in the best way possible. And I always look at this, that there's this quiet thing that happens and we're not always aware of it till it happens, and that's burnout. Because some of us, we go, we go, we go, we give, we give, we give, we give, until we can't give any more. And it's
That's right.
when something happens that we realize, oh, I need to take care of myself. Self-care
Yes.
is not selfish, and sometimes it's too late. And that is fun. And I can say it because I've been there, you know, and it was a thing that you think everything's fine until literally one day something happens out of the ordinary and you realize that you can't ignore it. You have to either go and see a professional or you have to change something quite drastically.
Basically.
You're nodding. There's a note of resonance there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like you're kind of taking the words out of my mouth. And I think sometimes the reason why women get themselves into the situation is that no one goes into it, right? Thinking that's what it's going to be. I'm going to keep working, 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 and kind of juggling and juggling and juggling. It just keeps happening because you're thinking it's going to get better. You're thinking soon some of the burden will be taken off me one way or the other, or soon XYZ, but it just doesn't happen because the people around you could just keep moving the goalposts, and maybe just normalizing it. Whereas for you, it's not normal. It's just kind of like an interim, but it becomes normalizer before you know it. That becomes what you just keep doing. And I think I found a lot of women in that situation. And I actually have a friend that pretty much had a breakdown. Because you could just see standing outside of her environment how she's just coping with so much. But when you speak to her and say, girl, you need to slow down because doesn't look healthy at all. And she's thinking, oh no, it's only for another year because XYZ will change. Oh, it's only for another but then, whatever it was she's expecting never actually happens because it wasn't, people didn't have the same understanding or expectation. And then, yeah, before you know it, you just break down. So, yeah, there's a lot of learning there. And I think we just started to touch about that the sort of impact that kind of pressure can have on women mentally, emotionally, and physically. What are some of the examples you've seen?
Well, things like, feeling tired. You never feel fully rested. Another big thing is hair loss. That's
Mm,
something that's happening to a lot of women, and I don't think it's only down to the chemicals. I do feel it's down to lifestyle and stress.
that's right.
There's a lot of autoimmune diseases that are happening as well because, again, what the stress is doing to our bodies, our immune systems can't cope, and it's trying to compensate in whatever way, and then the body ends up attacking itself.
Mm.
A lot of the time we can't get it diagnosed because they can't find what the actual problem is. Therefore, they'll use it, give us all kinds of medication to try and see if it helps. But it's a case of nobody seems to have the complete thing. This is what it is. This is what's going to happen, and everybody's different. So
Mm.
you know, and some people have a combination of things. And I'll be quite transparent. So when we're going back over 20 years ago, where I experienced hair loss, and part of the treatment to deal with that was steroid injections into my scalp. And then the other thing that the dermatologists decided they wanted to do was say, okay, if we can do something to trigger eczema in your body, that might trick the body so that it adjusts with the hair. The irony was, before they could even start the treatment, I got eczema anyway, and literally my whole body was covered in it. And it was
Wow.
so bad, yeah, even going into the shower was painful. And I then had to find my own solutions, and it was trial and error to actually combat that. And one of the solutions actually made an allergy that I had from childhood even worse, which to this day is now a no-no for me, yes. But thankfully, I was able to find something that works for me. So now my skin, if you look at it, you wouldn't know
Mm.
that how if you listen, my neck didn't look like this, trust me. I've got the photographic evidence, but you wouldn't know that. And even now my skin is sensitive, so I make my own moisturizer and so forth because I've had to learn what my body needs. And I
Mm.
just say that, I was blessed that that it was only that happened. It wasn't something even more serious. Where some people, they can't get up again. It's a real challenge out there, and it is imperative for women to really take stock and listen to our bodies, because sometimes we try and ignore and we're resilient. We're this, we can do, but
Superwoman.
I will not hold that title.
That's right. I think I consciously remember when I said, I got called and I said, no, I'm not. Don't call me that.
Exactly.
I'm not, right? Because nobody is. It's so unfair, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we hear a lot about burnout. We've even mentioned it already here, but not always do we hear the deeper conversations around the deeper emotional load that women carry. Why do you think that is?
Yeah. De well, depending on the community you come from, and I remember growing up from a Caribbean household, what happens in the house stays in the house. You don't go around telling people your business.
That's
And,
right.
you and again, I think we were just encouraged to just get on with it, get on with life. We're not complainers, and it's interesting because growing up, I used to, embrace that, and it was only as I got older and started doing and got into the coaching field, to be honest with you, light bulb went off that the women that seem to be the happiest are the ones that know how to get their needs met. They ask for
Mm,
what they want, they take the help and support that they need, and they're happy and bold doing it. And us that are struggling are the ones that we're looking at them thinking that they're spoiled, that this, that, that. And it's like, well, no, they got sense because they
that's
know what
right.
they need.
That's
And
true.
I think, that is re-education for some of us in that understand yourself, know what your needs were. As we were talking before we started recording, even that, at the weekends, giving yourself permission to do nothing. Give
Mm,
yourself permission to just relax and not be working off of your to-do list. Some
that's
of us will relax, but we'll feel guilty, or we're thinking about the next thing we have to do, rather than literally just say, "Oh, I'm going to do nothing," and I'm content doing nothing.
That's right. No, absolutely. And that is such a massive culture shift, isn't it? Because some of us, like you've said, come from a culture where it's kind of like you're not allowed to be lazy. You kind of need to be seen to be doing something and achieving. Yeah. But I am with you. I think we kind of need to get to a place where you don't have to be older to realize that, self care is critical. Even as a young woman, we kind of need to almost understand what the structure is to have real self-care.
Mm.
It needs to be like a framework on, total self-care, what that looks like for a woman, honestly. And so you're kind of checking the boxes. Have I this? Have I that? So the boxes we check isn't just about to-do lists, it's also about the self-care and taking care of yourself and the things you have to do on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. So yeah, that's one for me to take away at actually that list.
I'll be checking up on you.
I mean, I can imagine from what you talked about your own personal experience during that time, I can imagine you were working and juggling family life and everything that life had to offer. Do you think workplaces are truly designed to support women's well-being? Or are many women expected to just push through in silence, Because there's a responsibility to workplaces to almost see how you're getting on.
It's a double-edged sword because of the fact that when as you said, workplaces. So you're going there to
To
work.
work.
You're going there to deliver something, and then you get compensated for your efforts. I know there is a lot more movement now towards there being more understanding, more care. Even, the last 5 to 10 years, there's more focus on understanding menopause, for example, and realizing it's a real situation that women need real support in the workplace in order to go experience their menopause journey. So that is huge. Because I can remember years ago, women would be going through it, and sometimes I think they're going crazy, or they weren't diagnosed, or they just didn't speak about it. You saw women really suffering and being challenged, and there was no name put on it. There wasn't necessarily the support network to assist those women as they were going through it. And sadly to say, for most of us, we will experience it.
Mm,
And and the thing is, it's not just a female issue because if you've got a partner or you've got family members, they are going to be going through that with you because they're there on the sidelines. And I joke about it because sometimes when I get a little bit warm, my personal radiator goes off. Because my sons are older now, and I remember teasing my eldest, saying to him, "Don't worry, son, this is just preparing you for later life." But it's real. And that's the thing. So as you going back to your question about workplaces, I think workplaces do so much. Some are better than others. Some haven't quite got there yet. But because if they haven't got the resources themselves in order to cover for that person that may wake up on a day and literally can't get out the door, can't function, can't rush, and there's no backup there to say, attend the meeting they were due to go to or meet this deadline they were meant to meet. What happens? and therefore that person is made to feel bad about the fact that they can't be there or they can't deliver or they're late. So it's a bit of a catch-22 situation and a spiral in that how can we really make workplaces work for everybody in how they need it? Because it's not even just the structure and policies that you may have in the workplace. There's also the fact that dealing with colleagues, because if a colleague's not experiencing that, they may regard the person that is going through something in a particular way and then feel that they've been put upon or the other person's taken advantage of a situation. So it's a very there isn't an easy solution. Yeah, that's my take on it. There isn't an easy solution, and we do have to see people as individuals. Again, is it just down to organizations to make sure the structures are right, or do we actually need some kind of legislation that can support organizations to do it effectively
Yeah.
so that the economy can still turn over? So it's a big topic and it's a big conversation because I think now people are dealing with more and there are more and more conditions that are being labeled. So I like to use the term labeled because even the fact that we're seeing a lot of women in particular now in later life being diagnosed as having ADHD. And we didn't have that, say, even 10 years ago. But now
That's
we're hearing more and more women saying, "Oh, I've got ADHD. Oh, I've been diagnosed."
That's so right. Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I think I hear a lot, right, that Black women in particular carry multiple layers of expectations and responsibilities. Do you agree with that from, your experience and what you've seen? And if that's so, how do we begin to create environments where women, Black women feel genuinely supported, rather than just be resilient?
Let's lose that title, strong Black woman, to start with. That's the first thing. Let's lose
Yeah,
that title because, again, that's a burden that's been put
yeah,
on somebody straight away. And I do feel that, and we've seen reports about it in terms of the assumption that, Black women have stronger pain thresholds. We've mentioned earlier on about the fact that growing up, we've always been taught how to be resilient. You give a Black woman some water, flour, salt, maybe a bit of sugar. How many different things can she make from that? And and make it tasty too. So that I think that I'd say it's probably in our DNA now in terms of we are very resourceful. And I think sometimes that resourcefulness is also a rod for our own back because we may not ask for help soon enough because we will try and do it. We'll try and make something work. We'll find a solution.
that's
We'll,
true.
we'll grin and bear it. We'll hunker down and do stuff. So I do feel that that is a key issue that doesn't necessarily help Black women in life, but also in health as well, because of that expectation that she can
Mm,
cope. And I think there is, as you mentioned before, there is an expectation that she can cope. There's an expectation that she will deliver. And then if she doesn't, why is she playing up?
yeah. Go get it together. No, that's so true. That's so true. If I touch on technology, so, we know that technology is becoming more involved in the way we work, communicate, manage our health, pretty much, everything. Um, because I think that, the COVID era definitely, yeah, helped technology progress in so many different ways. Because suddenly that was our lifeline. So yeah, with the growth of technology, what do you see that role being? What role does technology play in supporting women's well-being? I mean, I think practically, is this something you've actively seen working for women?
I feel that again with technology, I think that, the myth at the moment is that technology is going to take over everything. My personal understanding of technology is a case of when you're using it, you have to know what the results are that you want. You have to know what you want out of it. And if we're sticking with women's health, for example, technology can give more access, in particular for people that may be in remote areas, more access to information that they may not have on their doorstep. So that's one thing. But, it's good for research and to find out, what information's already out there, what studies have been done. Even in the case of there may be even devices and stuff. So we were talking about self-care, for example. We know there are a few apps out there that will help people with things like meditation, with relaxation, even exercise and different things. So I think it's from a woman's perspective, knowing what you want that technology for, and again, structuring it in a way that's beneficial to you, because we know that technology, you can get sucked into technology and it can do as much harm as it can do good. And if we start looking at it from a context of comparison and believing someone's end story to your in the middle story and then comparing yourself, it can make you feel worse. But
Yeah.
if you're using it constructively, it can be good. And also even for tasks, because I'd say I'm an early adopter with some things. So I use AI, for example,
Yeah.
but I know that what the work is I'm doing, what I want to do, and how I utilize it is just to reduce the amount of time it takes me to do something that I would have done anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm not using it to be my brain. I'm not using it to replace myself, but I'm using it to enhance what I'm doing
Hmm.
so that I don't have to spend 3 days doing something. I can potentially get it done in half a day
Yeah.
or a few hours. So that then frees time up for me to maybe take time out for myself, do something I enjoy doing, go and take pictures of flowers as I love to do. So I think it's finding intelligent use and knowing what you want out of it before you actually start going down the rabbit hole and going off somewhere where you don't want to go and is not beneficial to you. I do feel that we can use it to our advantage, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's some really innovative ones out there. And I think I mentioned to you in the first time we caught up was I had a podcast interview with the founder of Future Femme Health, which is like a weekly newsletter. Started off as a newsletter. I think it's becoming more of a platform now that kind of informs women, all the different femtechs out there, the new news on femtech and how they can leverage on that. And I also live in. And one example she gave me about a femtech that was I thought was so amazing and not something that I would have thought about is how would a person who is visually impaired be able to read their what's it called bets if you're testing for pregnancy your pregnancy test because at the moment it's only visual you can only tell by looking at it and so she just kind of thought it was not great that someone needs to tell her whether she was pregnant or not and it's not something she can just do privately and so this lady had gone out to develop an app that would be allow people who were visually impaired to tell if they were pregnant without help. So yeah, there's so much going on out there, which is really exciting and amazing. But on the other hand, I'm sure there are concerns. So what concerns you the most about technology and the way systems are currently being designed, especially for um around femtech and areas that relate to women's health and well-being.
I think one of the key things is that I still believe there's very little research done around Black women's health to have something substantial. But also the other thing is that even, generally around women's health, a lot of medicines and medical research, but I'd say again up until maybe 5 years or so, was really focused on men and predominantly white men. They were the real sample group that things were made for, designed for, even dosages and things like that. And I only heard this about 3 or 4 years ago. It's a young female doctor who works within the NGO. I can never get the word out. Within women's health, shall I say? She was the one that actually highlighted us to the fact that the nature of medicine, the background of medicine has
Mm.
really been designed and focused on men, and men have been the subject matter. And so it wasn't really that designed around women. And women need different things. We need different dosages. We need different compounds and stuff. So I think even that, it's having enough invested to actually do the research and develop things for women. And I think though now with the onset of AI and different things, it has opened out the field a little bit. But the only concern is that the data that's going in is accurate data. So therefore the information that comes out, the things that can be designed and so forth are good. And I think that's the key thing is actually understand where that data's coming from and the accuracy of it and the significance of it as well. So that's my sort of counterbalance in that we still have to have those checks and measures in place to make sure that we're getting good stuff. But again, you mentioned COVID earlier on. The fact that they were able to come up with a vaccine in record time. Okay, we don't know how much testing was done, but we're not going down that rabbit hole. But, it just shows that when we need to, we can use technology to produce medical solutions that hopefully work. That's what.
Right.
So there's a lot of scope, but I think we just need to err on the side of caution and make sure proper testing is done because we don't want to use certain people as guinea pigs either. And I know, sadly, that sometimes certain people in certain areas can be used as guinea pigs to test things before it's rolled out elsewhere. So we have to be very mindful of that as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny she mentioned that, first of all, about what you said about women not being included in medical research. That is so true because during my research, I found that women weren't included in any form of medical research in the US until 1993, which is, I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's just, I don't know. It's just crazy to think that that was even possible because if you think about it, the people who were in charge of the budget, the people who were carrying out those researches, just focusing it on men, had mothers, they had sisters, have spouses. So I just don't understand how it never occurred to them for so long that it was important to include women. It's just something I've kind of tried to understand, and it's just been impossible for me to just understand that. And actually, recently I found out when I was having a conversation with a lady researcher that in our workplaces, in the offices, that the air conditioning is designed to suit the temperature of the male body. And I'm like, that's why I'm always so cold. You know,
Yes.
I think if there's something wrong with you, why am I so cold? Right? It's just crazy to think that. And that
Even
thing
lighting,
trust
lighting
it.
as well.
Like,
Fluorescent
yes,
lighting, different
even
lighting.
lighting.
Yep, yep.
You know? And I was just like, oh my gosh, these are things I didn't think made any difference. And I'm like, that's why, my husband wants the air conditioning, freezing. And I'm always like, no, it's too much. Or why I kind of want the light dim and he wants it bright. And the fact that these things were left to go on for so long is just incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
But,
Yeah.
society, as much as we've moved on, but again, in the UK, up until the 1980s, women's taxes still had to be on their spouses, so women's income was on their husband's tax return. So when you put it into context, it's only been, I'd say, from, the 70s, 80s, that we're moving from a patriarchal society to an
Mm.
integrated society. So when sometimes we think about, there's no equity and equality and so forth, when we contextualize it, we can see why, even though intellectually we're thinking there shouldn't be a differentiation. But society hasn't moved that quickly. And we're now because our lives are at warp speed, our expectations are at warp speed because it's like, well, we're 50 to 51% of society. We can do as much or as little and we're comparable. Okay, there are some differences, which I think we should honor those differences as well.
Yeah.
So our expectations is that, well, yeah, equal rights, equal pay. But yet, if we track where society was, we can see why those gaps are there and why we're still playing catch up and catch up and catch up. So, yeah, there's work to be done. And we just hope and pray that there's enough people that see the bigger picture and
Yeah,
are doing the work so that, society works for everybody. And I think that's the key thing. It works for
that's
everybody.
right.
I think sometimes when we talk about the female agenda, people think it's at the expense of men. And I don't buy into that either because I feel that we work in partnership and we're all better when we can support each other. It's not about us or them. It's just us. And when we do that, we're so much stronger and we can achieve so much more.
And this is coming from a woman with 2 sons, right? So you
Exactly.
cannot be thinking of anything to jeopardize your son's futures, right? And the same thing, I have a son. So it's nothing to do with that at all. You want them to progress, you want them to do amazing things, you want to be proud of them, let them reach the top. But what we're saying is women deserve the same opportunities.
If you're capable, and I look at it, if you're capable, why not do it? And that's, my whole work is around that.
Mhm.
Human potential. So whether you're male or female, you've got potential. What is your unique gift and how do you express that and share that with the world? Because I still believe that we're all part of this huge jigsaw. And if only one piece of a jigsaw is missing, what happens? So for me, it is very much that, okay, let's nurture those that want the nurturing so that they can be fulfilled and contribute to society. That's the other thing. It's that you
That's
let
right.
someone grow, they can contribute.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I was gonna talk on data, but just on that last point you made is I spoke to a lady recently, Bliss Celestine, who is an advocate for FGM. Yeah, Bliss and just the amazing work she does around trying to convince families, especially those in the rural areas, that their daughters have as much capability as their sons to actually support the family and pull the family out of poverty and to contribute to society and family and make life better to everyone if we just give them a chance. And just to think that in the 21st, that sort of conversation is still required can be mind boggling sometimes.
It's
Yeah.
funny you mentioned that because one of the girls that we sponsored would have been early 2020s, yeah, or so, or just before, did exactly the same thing. She was a one girl campaign and she walked from village to village in her area of Kenya to speak to the elders, to persuade them not to cut their girls, but to educate them. Because if they educate their girls, the girls can then go out and earn money and bring it back to the family to help support the family. And she even went to the UN and spoke. She came over here and spoke as well. And she was so committed to her cause. And what I loved when she came here and spoke, people would ask her questions about other things. She'd bring them right back to her campaign. And I was thinking, this girl is good. She is so committed. That was, this is also a thing where culture and tradition is
Mm.
inbred. Are younger women you know, who've got ambitions, have got exposure to other things that maybe their elders and seniors didn't have exposure to, and
Mhm.
therefore wanting to voice their aspirations and try and achieve what they're capable of. But they're fighting against ingrained culture. And that is the challenge in the how, do you change something that's systematic and there's inbred beliefs, it's a huge
It's
effort.
huge to change the way of thinking of generations of people. It's one of the hardest, toughest, most difficult things, especially, well, I was going to say, especially the people are not very enlightened and educated. But to be honest, it's across the board because we're talking about things that educated people should have known, when we talk about women not included in research, et cetera, et cetera. These were all being done by highly academic people and talented individuals.
But again, now going back to coaching, one of the things we always talk about is people don't always recognize their blind spots. So you mentioned about academics. Some of the people are so focused on what they want to do that they do not recognize their blind spots and they are busy pushing their agenda as opposed to having a peripheral vision or bringing in different voices to actually challenge some of the thinking. Because let's face it, a lot of people don't like to be challenged, especially if you're senior in what you do and you're renowned. How dare you challenge them? So yeah, there's a lot of dynamics to play with in that. And I personally feel it takes a strong person who's willing to be challenged and not see it as an attack. Because that's the other thing. Oh, we use the word challenge, but it doesn't mean that you're being attacked personally. It's just, it's being given the opportunity to expand the vision around what's what. And I think that is something that we don't always invite because if we look back to us as historic beings, it was always about protection and safety, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think as you say now, it just occurred to me that some people can just not be changed, full stop. And that's sometimes the difficulty in it is I've, definitely had the experience of knowing someone who I thought was surrounded by, if I use that word again, people who are enlightened, accommodating of all sorts of people, but who just seemed really traditional in their way of thinking that I just couldn't understand because, the education, the enlightenment, the exposure to society. But I think sometimes we take for granted the impact the deep cultural practices can have on people and how they hold on so much to that it becomes a part of them. And it's just so hard for, you kind of almost need to point out that's not, a modern way of thinking, or that's not the best way of thinking. It's kind of more cultural and they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, maybe." But it's just, I've kind of come to learn that, yeah, it's a long road ahead. I think been a lot of progress in terms of allowing women to be all that they can or attempt to be all that they can, but there's still quite a long way to go.
And yeah, and again, while you were speaking, what sprung to mind is the fact that it's very difficult to change a person's beliefs, and our beliefs basically manage everything that we do. And if you think about it, depending on the age of the person, they've had that belief for how long? And we want them to change it overnight. And again, you can't force someone to do what they don't want to do. So unless they actually recognize them within themselves and want to change that belief, then we can be, going on and complaining. But for them, if there's no need for them to change it, why would they change it? And sadly, that's human beings for you. That's human nature.
That's right.
And sometimes also the work to actually change that belief can become challenging in itself. So if somebody says, okay, I want to get a new habit or change this, and they may start, but a few days in, something else happens, and what occurs? They go back to their normal way of being. So it takes a lot of commitment. It takes a very strong desire and determination to actually change a belief and to start to implement and do something differently. And that is a challenge for all of us as human beings. Anything we say we want to do, you start your New Year's resolution, by day 15, what's happened? So yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, so Dr. Roseanne, if anybody wanted to know more about the help that you give and how to be part of it, what are the channels and venues to do that?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, so I am there. I've recently started a Substack blog. So it's very new, it's in its infancy. So you can jump on board. It's called Leaders That Listen, and it's very early stages. So you can see it grow and evolve and maybe come and make suggestions and comments. I do have a YouTube channel by the same name. I've not posted on there recently, but yeah, I'm on most platforms, to be honest. You'll find me somewhere.
Yeah. No, that's good. And looking ahead, what kind of future would you love to see for women, both personally and professionally?
Oh, what would I love to see for women? So one, I think the first and foremost thing is women honoring themselves, taking the time to understand themselves and know what works for them, what doesn't, what are their core values, when to say yes to things, when to say no gracefully. And then in the work environment or professional environment is being bold enough and brave enough to actually go for the things that your heart desires, not the things that you feel you're allowed to go for. Because sometimes we play small and think, oh, who am I to want to do that? People like me don't do that. But to
Yeah.
really go deeper in your heart space, I think, well, what is it you desire? What would you love to do? What's the difference you want to make? And then just take that one step at a time. and just try it. Yeah, I'd say just try it. Even if you don't go all the way, at least you know you've tried it. And I feel that is key for us as women because we don't know what we're capable of until we try.
That's right. Thank you so much. And I think for any woman who decides to do that, but isn't quite sure how to even start. So when you say try it and just start, what would be, as a way to end, what would be the key steps anyone should be taking? Yeah,
Okay, so first and foremost, get clear on what this thing looks and feels like. So once you know what it looks and feels like, be very clear on that. If I also do a skills audit, and I do that with people that I work with actually. I designed a little sheet. Do a skills audit of all the things you've done, capable, and whether they're professional or not professional, because sometimes we have skills and talents that we don't actually put a value on because it comes to us so easily we don't realize that how valuable it is to somebody else. So I
that's
always say do a skills audit of where you're at because you'll probably find that some of the things that you do naturally tie into whatever it is you want to do. And then look at what is it you've always been interested in? Because that's also a key sometimes to what that next thing could look like. So
mm,
when you know all of that, then do some research to see, well, okay, are you already in that arena or do you know anybody that's in that arena? And then that will help you to find the first step you can take to either to join groups or get some training around whatever it is that you want to do and just proceed from there. But it's always, it's just always do something. That's the key thing. Don't sit back and put it off till next time or hide it because you haven't given yourself permission to go and do it yet.
that's great. Thank you so much. That's such a lovely place to end this is do something. Just just start and just do it. Thank you so much, Dr. Roseanne. It's been an amazing conversation, really insightful. And thanks for blessing me with your presence.
And thank you for the invitation. And congratulations on this fantastic work that you've embarked on because you are making a significant difference. And I can imagine that by the time you've finished all of the studies that you're doing, in addition to this podcast, you will be putting something extra powerful out there for women and communities. So I'm watching you and looking forward to calling you Dr. Chiamaka.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'll take that.